Well, cheers, everybody. Welcome to episode 7 of the Variables Podcast, your favorite late night, Friday night, 11 p.m. hashcast with your hosts. It's me, Fergoli, Superior Buds. And tonight, our guest host, RacerX, and our esteemed guest, Stephen Landry, a.k.a. Mr. Reheat, a.k.a. I run a controversial Instagram page, aka I'm going to put all the dehumidifier companies out of business, aka he's teaching us all how to grow nowadays. It seems like. What's going on, guys? Thanks for joining. Cheers.
Cheers, man. Thank you for inviting me.
Great to have you, man.
Knows, Jack is my little brother. That's why I brought him.
I appreciate you having me on too. It's good to see you, Steven.
Oh man, I remember the last time I saw you, and the Chevrolet building.
Yep.
The Chevrolet building.
So I would like both you guys to give yourselves a little introduction. I gave Landry I'm going to call you Landry inside. I'm going to call you Stephen Landry. I'm going to call you Mr. Reheat. I got a lot of different names for you, so everybody try to keep up. But why don't we start with you, RacerX? What's your name? What's going on with you? Tell us, a little bit about your background and why you're here tonight.
Sure. My name's on Instagram, RacerX. My name's Jack in real life. I used to work at a grow shop. I used to watch podcasts, ones that you were on back in the day. And we were sitting around in a grow store and decided, we should probably move up to Michigan and get serious about it. And so we packed up our basements and garages, moved up to Michigan, got to work under the first year of MMFLA. And have transitioned over to AU. Have moved from Flint to Lansing about a year and a half ago.
Adult use.
Adult use. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So that's the recreational side of things, right?
Correct.
You've moved on from medical to now recreational.
Correct.
Okay. Sorry to interject. Just to clarify for some of the people that don't understand the lingo, especially if you're from outside of Michigan. But so you're in Lansing now.
Mm-hmm. And when we were starting up, I messaged Steven earlier today where I was like, I've been following you since 2019, which is when we were kind of approaching what our first commercial HVAC solutions were looking like for this big grow we're putting up. And, we talked to a fair amount of techs, engineers, and scrolling. I was trying to find it. I couldn't find exactly where the first post that I ran across it was, but somehow, some way in the algorithm, Reheat pops up, makes sense. Fast forward a couple of years, we try it out in a grow room, works pretty well. We go ahead and apply it to other grow rooms. When we moved out here, it's our primary strategy. Right now, we have one room completely set up under Reheat. We have one room that was built before we took over this spot that has 2 dehues, and we're putting up a third one right now. That's going to be another Reheat room. All these are roughly the same size flower rooms, roughly 20 lights a piece. And we're seeing, flatter numbers on our Reheat rooms in terms of how they're handling dehumidification.
Okay, slow down. Those last few sentences you said Reheat about 10 times, and I promise you we'll get there.
Okay.
But you said when you first started looking into your first real HVAC solution as a commercial grower, how many lights are we talking about? Because a lot of the people that watch this show are going to be your home growers, right? They might have 1, 2, 5, 10 lights, something like that. A handful of them are going to be commercial growers that might be running either, probably not outdoor because you're not worrying about this too much in the same way, but indoor lights, maybe dozens or hundreds or however many lights. Your first solution you're talking about. What kind of setup were we talking about? Your first real commercial grow setup? How many lights? What kind of HVAC were we working with?
So put it in perspective. I mean, most of these larger commercial grows are in the scale of hundreds of lights. We had less than 100 starting out. We still have less than 100. We're breaking our rooms up into roughly 20 to 30 lights. So in that facility, 4 rooms, anywhere between 18 and 30 lights across the 4 of them. They were undersized for AC, just nature of building out at that time. But it was a mishmash too. We had a couple of 5-ton, package air handlers, and then we had or split air handlers, and then we had a bunch of mini splits in there as well. It was another building that we took over after Grow had shut down in there. So we adapted some of the package unit or the split 5-ton air handlers, added the reheat package, and let it rip.
Okay. So that brings us to the whole idea of reheat and kind of where you've started to at least apply it. Now, Steven, when we talked on the phone, you had a pretty interesting backstory. Are you willing to share? How much of that are you willing to share with us? Just to kind of start again with your background, how you got to this space and why you're really pushing what you're pushing eventually. You know, we'll get there.
Well, let me just assure everybody, the reason that I know so much about my industry and I try to teach others is when I first started doing heating and cooling, I was lucky enough to be hired by refrigeration men. And they taught me things like thermodynamics. They gave me some physics. They taught me the law of energy conservation, right? So I started in the trade, not crawling under houses, pulling flex duct and running a zip screw and zip ties and stuff, right? I started off having to learn how to fix a walk-in cooler, ice machine, beer coolers, things that had something very valuable to the businesses. No different. Same thing today. But fast forward, I spent my life doing all different forms of HVAC stuff. And in 2008, there was a housing crash. I lived in Bend, Oregon, and it was the second largest growing city next to Vegas in America during those times. Wasn't as big as Vegas, but it crashed as hard as any work did, right? So suddenly there was no work. And at this time, I started practicing hot yoga. And I found that it gave me something really physical to do. And I was used to having a physical job. So there was no work. I couldn't change, there was no work, but I could go do hot yoga. And it was therapy, right? You understand, in Bend, Oregon, 2008, people were dying that were in construction because they couldn't handle the debt that they had been left with, right? So that was my therapy. And I decided I don't want to ever go back to construction. I want to hide out in yoga. I'm going to become a hot yoga teacher. And I brought this to prove that anybody wants a question. Here's my certificate from Bikram, signed it. He handed it to me in LA in 2011.
That is awesome.
Love it.
Jay,
Wait. Were you looking for a hot yoga teacher or a hot yoga teacher?
I was at a bar one night and a gentleman told me that the hottest women in town practice hot yoga. So all I knew was I got to go to hot yoga.
Okay, fair enough.
I had been married for 20 years. The reason I'm sitting there at the bar is I'm in my mid 40s. I just got divorced. Yeah, dude tells me there's the hottest women in town for yoga. That's where I went. So, but again, you got to understand, like a lot of things that we do, we probably do them too much. So I went to hot yoga every day for 600 consecutive days without not going in the same yoga building. And I even drove from Bend, Oregon to Spokane and back and still went every day without missing a day for 600 days. Yeah. No. Let me change that, guys. 18 months. 18 months, 600 classes. Right? Okay. So
I mean, either way. Either way.
So I want to tell you guys, though, that Jay Larkin from Dry Flower Hanging Harvest System out in Ashland, Oregon, Jay was in my group in Bikram Hot Yoga teacher training. He's Larkin, I'm Landry. We were next door neighbors in our hotel, and we were in the same group. So Jay Larkin's in the industry. I'm in the industry. We're both certified Bikram Hot Yoga teachers. We can lead that. I'm hiding out in yoga, and I'm not making any money. I was a broke-ass yoga teacher. And 2015 comes along, and Oregon's opening up to recreational. And I start thinking there's got to be some opportunity for people other than you guys in this thing. So I start looking at it, and I follow everybody on Instagram off of my yoga page in Oregon that was associated with you guys. If it was you guys, I followed you if you were in Oregon. Everybody you know, if I could find them, I'd follow who you followed, and I gobbled up all these people in cannabis in Oregon. And I followed you guys. And what I noticed was that you guys need your best friend to be an HVAC guy that knows some refrigeration.
100%.
So I'm observing this, and one day on my Instagram feed is the rooftop of Deschutes Growery in Bend, Oregon, and they show a 4,000 square foot solar panel array that they've just traded money with the electric company, and it's trading in HPS. They're getting money for LED. They're getting money for solar. They're working the whole energy game that is in Oregon. And when I see that, I think I got to get next to these guys because they're doing something construction related, and I'm from construction. So I messaged Deschutes Grower off my yoga Instagram page that doesn't exist anymore. And I said, hey, besides being a yoga teacher, I'm also licensed and bonded insured contractor, air conditioning, if you need any help with anything. And Justin Clappick messaged me and said, hey, come on down, meet us. Went down there. They said, we're going recreational from medical, and we did all this shit with no permits. And now we have to get all this shit permitted, and some of it's not legal. Like when you said MC earlier, that's the thing. They built this whole facility with Romex, which you can't put in a commercial building at all. There was miles of Romex that all came out.
No.
They had to take it out, and they had to buy again. But what they asked me to do was write a letter to the city of Bend and explain to them that everything was to code. They want me to tell the city everything they did is to code, not the electrical, just HVAC, mechanical stuff. And I said, okay, I'll write you a letter. I knew the letter wasn't going to have any weight with the city, but I wrote a letter saying some stuff, gave it to him. A couple of days later, he contacts me, and this is how the text message goes. He goes, hey, Steve, the city wants to know if we got a drawing. And I said, didn't you say your architect just drew your floor plan? He says, yeah. And I said, well, send me that drawing and I'll draw your drawing on that drawing because that'll be a good place for it to be. And I took a copy of their floor plan and I spent the next week at my yoga studio. In between the couple of classes I had a week now, at the end, I didn't have that much yoga business, but I had a situation that was working and I could go play with the cannabis guys, right? So I tell them, okay, I'll draw your plan for $1,000 or something. And I spend a week and I draw with a pencil and a ruler everything that they put in their facility. There was 36 Vortex fans. There was 9 or 12 mini splits. There was miles of flex duct. There was 100 hoods. So I drew the lights on the plan too, right? I drew what the facility was, right? I drew the facility plan as built. It's built. This is what's in the place. I drew that. And as I'm drawing it, because you got to remember, I looked for this opportunity. And when I was drawing for a week, going, oh, HPS, huh? And I make my own legend like an architect does, an engineer does, so that, oh, you look at that symbol. Oh, those are fans. Oh, those are filters. That's flex stuff, okay? I went, these guys just handed me fast track education on how you guys used to do it. Because it was all HPS, it was all over ventilated, not enough cooling, bunch of mini splits. They didn't have any dehumidifiers because Bend, Oregon, when you're in the HVAC industry or engineers, they know this stuff too, of course. There's this stuff called bin data, and that's, you can look up where you live, and there's a number that's your temperature almost all the time, everywhere, right? Bend, Oregon's number is 46 degrees. There's almost always 46-degree air outside. When you have 46-degree air, you don't need air conditioning. But guess what? You don't have a sealed room. And you can't control your VPD when you overventilate the room, right? So I got to walk in. We talked about this earlier when we were getting to know each other, that I walked in as you guys are going from overventilated to fully sealed. So I got to build a ventilated room with them. Their first LED room we built was still overventilated. It didn't have enough cooling. It was that Swiss cheese room that you were talking about, Jack. Holes everywhere from all the different attempts and fans and shit that was in and out of it. We closed all that. We didn't close all that up on the first run in room 1. but we went to room 3, and room 3 was the first room that they built sealed. You guys want me to keep talking?
Yes, I'm curious though, what year that was, that you initially got that plan out.
This is 2016. I'm drawing that, and 2017 we start building 4-level LED sealed rooms that they used to grow
4 level.
4 levels in.
Kill me, dude.
Living soil beds, right? Those were
can't
bedded,
talk about their
bedded racks.
too much. I got to leave some of their stuff to them. But what I can tell you is when I started there, they grew 18 bushes under 18 lights.
Okay.
That doesn't mean anything to me. That means something to you. They grew 18 bushes under 18 lights. It was medical in Oregon. There was a plant count.
Yeah.
There was a plant count, right? So patients and all that stuff, right? When they went to recreation in Oregon, no plant count. Some LED guys came to them and told them, hey, we can show you how you can grow 3 levels in 10 feet. And they said, maybe we can do 4.
Because you'll have that, because we can sell you 3 times as many LEDs. I mean, you'll grow 3 times as much weed.
No, the LED guys wanted 3. The LED guys didn't want to reach out. DG said, well, if you can do 3, we're going to try 4. And they bring me, I don't know nothing about your industry, right? And they bring me into this room, and they got racks in this room. They're only 4 by 8. They're only 8-foot racks, but they're 4 levels. You guys see all these fucking big, enormous 2-level shit.
Mm-hmm.
Your state is full of it.
Oh, I've seen a 4-level local. It was a bedroom, but still, it's insane.
So here's the program, and I hope the Justin's ain't mad at me for talking about this, but they take clones, and in the room that used to have 18 plants, they load 3,000 plants. 3,000 plants, where there was 18 plants. And 9 weeks later, all 3,000 plants are the hashtag flowers only. They ain't seen flowers only. Because let me completely blow everybody's mind. From the top of their soil to the bottom of the LED light, there's only 18 inches clear every day since 2017 and 18 and 19. When we built all their flower rooms out, they're still there. They're still, go look at the photos of their picture. Go look at the photos of their weed. So while I'm working for them, right, while we're doing this crazy LED thing that I don't know this is different. I'm charged with, they said, can you create something that'll blow air under the lights, over the plants, and not blow the plants apart? And that was my first charge in this vertical LED game. So I, on that day, had decades of moving air in and out of rooms and spaces and things. The last thing I did is create hot yogas for Bikram hot yoga people, right? So doing air duct stuff and holes in ducts and what.
It's worth mentioning though, because because a lot of people attribute you as the reheat guy, but your first step was those rack systems. How do you duct that properly? How do you hook it up to an air conditioner? Because like most people that you saw who were doing rack systems, what were they doing incorrectly? Like,
well, and I hold on real quick, Stephen. I want to jump in too, because what you're referring to, Racer, and what Landry, I'm just reading your name here. What Landry's mentioned multiple times with the sealed rooms is we kind of have these 2 phrases we refer to as growers, and one of them is airflow and one of them is air movement. Air movement is kind of the what's happening inside the room around the plants, up and down, left and right, and circular motions, however you might go about it, usually with the use of a lot of fans, right? Airflow is how much air is moving in and out of the room. It might be 0, like you're saying, with a sealed room, which I'm mostly in. It's not fully sealed, but it's a mostly sealed environment nowadays, and I'm running CO2 in it, and I'm running LED lights and air conditioning, all this stuff, right? I used to, when I was running HPS lights, because they were cool tubes and they put off so much heat and I didn't have enough air conditioning, I used to exhaust all that air with the use of a carbon filter right outside the room, right? And just take all that hot air right out. That's what I would, and most of us considered airflow. airflow. And so what we're talking now back to air movement is these crazy vertical environments, which I mean, I can't imagine the amount of micro environments that are in these because there's no kind of headspace above them. But the fact that we now have 4 different environments stacked up and we have to control this, sometimes they're 33-foot height buildings, and it's maddening. So tell us, how did you figure this out, and how did you start there?
Well, what happened is every time I've built a system, it's been different. And when they built the first rooms, I got to practice. The very first system I built, they ran one time and they decided to take everything out and cover the walls because they still had Panda up there. And they took the racks out and they wanted to take everything out. And while they were doing that, we were building room 3. And what I learned on the airflow in room 1, I got to go into room 3 and go, okay, well, I'm doing that again because it didn't work so good. But they also asked me, you got to understand, the first one I built, I thought I've got to stay out of that real estate. That real estate was the soil bed. That's the most valuable property in this fucking building. And everybody stays out but the plants. That I knew that. Why? Because I've been in business. Right? I'm not new to making money. And so I understand that's where the money's made. They don't want no heating and cooling shit in there, right? Now, understand also, they had these flat panel LEDs that were all the way up against the bottom. Nothing's 18 inches. That's because there was only 27 and 28 inches between different rooms from deck to deck. We're only starting with 27 inches at all, right? I know you shake your head because it's like, yeah, the finish. Now, here's the thing. They still grow a 3-foot plant in there, but it's bent down, okay? So changing the airflow, we get in room 3, we got a different system. I'm trying all sorts of different things. I learned that you got to make the loop. The reason I make the loop, and I don't care to tell, I'm happy to tell everybody why we do the loop is just better airflow. So that's why it's done. So take my experience, understand why I do the loop, better airflow. So room 3, I come up with this loop thing. That's Steven, the first sealed room.
Are you talking a vertical loop around there, or are you talking a horizontal loop, or both?
It's just a loop out and back inside of a rack level. Every rack level has to have air. So in the very first room, you got to understand, remember I was broke yoga teacher. I had every day to be in the facility once they let me in. I was there working there because I want to do this, right? And so I'm paying attention. And when they came to me, they said, can you do something about the humidity in room 3? The cooling's okay, story of your life, but the humidity's not. Can you do something about that? So I go and I check everything, and everything's working, and I go to them and say, hey, everything's working. You're not going to get any more out of what you have. And they said, do you think we need another dehumidifier? And I looked at Pappy and I said, I think we need another solution. And I went to Chicago to the ASHRAE trade show that year, and I walked the floor with the purpose to meet the world's largest dehumidification manufacturers and ask them the question, what is the biggest dehumidification job on planet Earth? And they said, indoor Olympic swimming pools with an arena for thousands of people. If you think your indoor farm is hard to control, imagine an indoor heated pond with a bunch of breathing sweaters, right? So that's the biggest load for them. I said, what's the solution? One word, reheat. Reheat, right? So I go back to Bend, Oregon on my way there.
Who said reheat? Is that was this already a solution?
DCA.
I'm sorry, DCA?
DCA is DCA is Dehumidifier Corporation of America, and Desert Air, who came out of them once upon a time, they said the exact same quote. They're our nation's largest dehumidifier. They make the biggest shit.
Right.
Those two guys do. DCA and Desert Air. Right. There's others that make it too. So anyhow, they said reheat. Well, on my way back to Bend, Oregon, I get out the instruction manual for the thermostat that I was using at DG, and I'm using it to control a Quest, and I'm using it to control an AC because this Honeywell thermostat does this. And I get the instructions out and I go to dehumidification, and there's the word reheat. I didn't know what I didn't know, but I had it the whole time, and you guys had it the whole time. We just didn't know what we didn't know. So I see, oh, this thermostat has reheat. So I go back to Bend, Oregon. I walk into room 3 one day. I walk up to the Honeywell thermostat. I go click, clickety, click, took the Quest off of it, enabled that 5-ton AC that I had installed with the 10 kW heater kit to do reheat. And I changed and I fixed that room. Room 3 changed this industry. You can thank room 3 at Deschutes Grower, because it was in that room that I practiced reheat for the very first time. And that was in 2018. Probably January 2018 is when I flipped that switch for them. Then that was the end of building that first building. They got funded. We got the building across the parking lot. We're going all new construction now. We don't have to do no code changing bullshit. We don't have to tear anything out, we have to redo anything. Now we've built rooms. We know what we're going to go build over there, right? I told them, I said, don't buy any dehumidifiers this time. Let me just build the system I want to build. And room 4 in DG was the driest room they ever had. I actually had to look at ways of throttling back the capacity we were having.
Yeah, we don't like it too dry either.
Yeah. In the first weeks, it was a problem, as it is. So we built the rest of the facility with 0 dehumidifiers in the flower rooms. They still don't have any. Nobody from there has ever called me and said, hey, can you do something about the humidity?
Yeah.
Ever.
Being able to iterate like that's awesome, though. You were able to go through and just keep refining until you dialed it. That's awesome.
What I did there, we don't do today, though, even on airflow. Reheat going, right? Is basic. Yeah, the reheat's basic. Everybody can do it. Everybody, because here's the thing, everybody. What dehumidification is not heat. It's a compressor running and cooling an evaporator coil below dew point so that water condenses on it and it runs down a drain. The heat of reheat just simply neutralizes the process so the room doesn't get hotter or colder. The room just stays at set point or about. We're not in a perfect world, as you guys have experienced for decades.
Before you give us your perfect explanation of what exactly reheat is and how you make it work for us as growers, I want to attempt my ELI 5 or explain like I'm 5 definition for it. And then I want RacerX to jump in and give us his explanation, maybe ELI 35, and then we'll get to Landry and see if he can correct us both. So my basic, very 5-year-old understanding of this is, we've got lights in our grow room. These lights add a lot of heat. We end up adding air conditioning to combat this heat. While we're combating this heat, turns out these air conditioners do a great job at reducing humidity. So cool. We're taking care of humidity, taking care of the heat. And then all of a sudden the lights go off. And we're talking for the most part, right? And then all of a sudden the lights go off and our heat source is gone and our air conditioning no longer needs to work. And that means our dehumidification isn't really working. And unless at this point we have a dehumidifier, well, we might be SOL in a night or two because powdery mildew is a bitch. And I've experienced it myself. And so it seems like, again, with my 5-year-old brain here, it seems like, well, maybe if we just, heat the room up at that point, the lights go off, maybe we can combat some of that, right? Without adding a second, third, fourth Quest, and then they're owned by the same company. Okay, so that's my 5-year-old brain. Racer Jack, can you give it a little bit further in-depth explanation now that you're actually utilizing it?
Yeah, and that covers most of it. The the only thing that we really think about it is running the heat and the cooling at the same time. And, I'm obviously thinking about it in more of an installation like perspective. Because a lot of air handlers in Michigan don't necessarily have reheat coils unless you spec them from factory. And knowing what that ratio is good information to have. You should DM Cannabis Mechanical about it. But the running your cooling with your heat is just making your cooling run for longer than it would typically run if it was just chasing your lights. So, when you have a cold surface in a warm or like a warm, humid room, it's going to collect water. So if you can, replicate the conditions or force those conditions more, you get more water coming out of it. You get more dehumidification, roughly about 100 pints per ton, which is enough on like a 5-ton unit to take care of most people's, larger home grows. And then for smaller grows, there's a great Cannabis Mechanical video about using the same concept with mini splits. I know Cannabis Mechanical is not the biggest fan of that technology, but being able to run those things at the same time, things you already have in the grow, without having to go out and spend thousands of dollars on equipment that you probably don't already use or like already need. It's kind of a game changer when you're talking about like setting up a budget for your grow and like making your grow work. It's been a godsend for us because when you're taking a look at the budget of a typical commercial or like big home grow, and you go to the grow store, you go to the guy at the counter and you're like, what are your solutions? And they go, look at this big box that we can sell you. It comes from the same distributors that the fertilizer and like back guano come from for some reason. It's a dehumidifier. It dehumidifies the room. That's your problem, right? It's humidity. But it's a deeper problem. You're running a sealed room with like a bunch of different loads happening, and you have to manage them all at the same time. And reheat's just a better holistic approach to keeping VPD in check, as opposed to hanging up 50% of your budget in these ambiguous white boxes that have a high failure rate.
I see you have one for sale. How much is that
Yeah.
going for? Because those suckers are expensive, man. I was fortunate enough, like I've through the GrowTube days, we were all sponsored by Quest. We had them on the show. I actually became good friends with one of the sales guys, and they gave us all that 185 cool, which was a little bit different than just your standard Quest. Are you familiar with that one, Steven? The Quest 185 cool. It actually had the compressor or the condenser outdoor, a compressor condenser. I don't know. It puts it outdoors, so you're actually adding cooling to your room instead of
Why didn't
heat.
they continue that?
Because they didn't work sub 20 degrees Fahrenheit.
I mean, you can get a 1/4 ton mini split at like Tractor Supply, right? And that's essentially what those things were, right? It's just the same split AC system.
It's something, I don't know. I still have it.
Was it a desiccant, or was it just
I think so.
an A coil with a compressor with a hot side, cold side, just like a mini split?
Who knows? It was very heavy. I know that much.
Anyways, if you want to put an offer in, RacerX 4 underscores on either side.
So that's like a 115, a one. I can't tell how big that is.
I think it's a 70.
Oh, a 70.
If this was a 115, I'd be taller than you. And you're huge. So
thank you.
No. I do actually have, like, legitimately, I have some 155 duals. I got 4 of them. They're in the hallway next door. If you want to give me a shout, send me an offer. Not really going to be using them. Don't plan on using them.
So Steven, I mean, I do feel like I've learned a little bit from RacerX's explanation. It was certainly better than my 5-year-old explanation. What can you give us that like really kind of drills into this and how it works? Because I want to say that I feel like I might not even be able to utilize this because the only air conditioning unit I have for my flower room is a mini split, and it's not a heating and cooling one. It's literally just a cooling one. And so, like, I mean, would I just have to then buy a separate heater and put it on a timer and try to do it all separately, or
that is one choice.
Okay.
Yep. Another choice is put another system in and run one on heat and one on cool. But guess what? We don't need the exact, let's say you had a 3-ton for your cooling, mini split head on the inside, right? You got 2 lights, you need 3, you got 1 3-ton head. You would need a 2-ton head to balance that. It's not 1-to-1, and that is where what you guys all said about what it is, you're absolutely right. But why it is every piece inside of that dehumidifier sitting behind Jack right now, every component in it is repeated in all the air conditioners that you own too, only they're bigger. Okay? They're bigger. Guess what? Bigger can do more work. That's how work gets done, right? Does doing more work use more energy? Yeah. So right now, the simplest way for, let's say you had 1 mini split and you want to change your room tonight, safely go put a heater in your room, and when the lights shut off, turn the heater on, but make sure you're not going to burn no shit down. Set it only higher than what you want the room to be, so that, let's say you want the room to be 70. You set the heater at 75. It's going to try to make 75. AC is going to try to make 70. They run off fucking night. When you wake up, your room is drier. It ain't hotter, it ain't colder. But
Wait,
it's drier.
so you're talking settings on a thermostat, right? And this is something I
Yeah.
think I need to visualize, especially if I'm using 2 separate units, right?
Yeah.
Where
This,
it, say I want a nice and cozy 77 degrees, right? Where am I setting my heater to, and where am I setting my AC to? And say that they are proportionally sized in that kind of 2 to 3 or the ratio you're giving us.
you're gonna have to experiment, like everything you do in growing. You're gonna have to experiment. So don't go crazy. If you want the room to be 77, set the AC for 77 and set the heat for 79. That way, you walk away for a few hours and then you check on it. You know that, okay, well, it didn't get more than 79, or whatever you want the dead bad to be. Maybe you're like, well, no, I'd rather overcool, so I'm gonna set it at 75 and set the heat at 77. Just start with some point. Here's what you got to understand. You guys know that there's the mini split reheat hack video on my YouTube channel. That's the title of it, mini split reheat hack, because it's just a hack. And the hack is, if you add some electric heaters to a space that has some air conditioners, whether they're portables or consoles or windows or mini splits or whatever they are, if it's an air conditioner, you counter the cooling with the heating when you need dehumidification, not when you need cooling. So first rule number 1, we don't add heat all the time. We don't add heat when you need cooling. We add heat when you don't need cooling and you need dehumidification. And when is that, Jack? Almost all the fucking time, huh?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing like in flower constantly having the ability to run at least one of the 5-ton units. We have 2 in that room under the conditions of reheat, and the other one just chases temperature and chases the lights. When it's lights out, the thing's running on, one set of. Yeah.
Are you sealed
Yeah.
now? Because we spent a lot of time talking about sealed.
Right.
So I have no idea about the industry. Is there a trend towards more density in biomass?
I mean,
that would
there's
be pounds to you guys,
right,
you know,
right.
Like,
but I mean, I've seen
are people growing
so many
more
different
or less in the
strategies.
same space?
More in the same space.
Always more. That is definitely the trend.
As much as the fire department will allow you to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you want to know more about the reheat simplification? Because I don't want to jump away from it, because I was about to talk about some airflow thing, but I want to talk about the basic, what you were talking about, Growly, because you wanted to know, like, how does the basic beginning people, they got a tent, they got a basement, how can they improve things? Again, go watch that YouTube video, mini split reheat hack, because at the begin, you got to watch it 2 times. First time, you're going to be bored out of your fucking mind, because I explain like some math and there's charts and numbers and shit. And you're going to be like, I don't want to look at this shit. Okay,
It's a
but
fun
you
2.0
gotta sit
discussion.
there and
Two
see
joints
that.
later, I might be
It's good.
interested.
Yeah, because the second time around,
underselling
now it's going to connect. You're going to come back to, oh, okay, now I know why I got to do what I got to do. I didn't understand why I got to do what I got to do, and I didn't like listen to him talk about numbers.
Well, yeah, it's a
It's
dense
real simple.
topic
It is
in
real simple.
context of the tent stuff, but like let's just say a specific example of somebody who's got a closet, something, maybe a 4-lighter. Sorry, we got a train going by here. It's a train station. But how, like, let's say that they're ready to attack and upgrade. But it's not feasible to pull in an air handler into the room. They want
Why?
to DIY.
Why?
Why? That's a good question.
Yeah.
Like if that's the big
Here's
challenge,
Maybe they ran
here's
out
what
of
I want to tell you
power.
about.
ran out of power. I mean,
Yeah, they use all 15 amps in that bedroom for lights and oscillating fans. They literally can't put any other HVAC equipment in there.
I guess
wall
they
unit.
overbuilt. I guess they overbuilt.
Yeah.
You can overbuild your power. People do it all the time. I can't change if you don't have enough power for what the process is you're attempting.
So
But
this is where you
the
say this is where you
number
start
one thing
running
in the whole
Romex and
industry-
MC.
Yeah.
The entire cannabis industry is not burning enough energy to do the job they're trying to do. Everybody needs to spend more energy to complete the task that they're trying to do. It's horsepower.
So I feel like that
It's
could be a
horsepower.
controversial statement. And why are you saying that? Because I feel like we're already getting flack. And thank God Bitcoin came in and was like, oh no, actually we're using more power. Look at
Yeah.
us.
Right.
And then the cannabis industry is like, all right, chill, guys, chill. Let's go to LEDs.
I didn't say how you use your power, or how you allocate it, and how you process it. You can do energy efficient measure things and everything, but most people don't like to check for energy efficiency.
Maybe you're saying that a lot of people are underestimating the fact that like the cooling, and if you run with reheat or let's just call it the proper sized HVAC solution against your desired lighting footprint, it's going to be over your actual lighting draw. Like your ACs with reheat are going to draw more power if all conditions are on at the same time, right, in terms of peak draw. But you're saying like, look, a lot of people, they're overbuilding. They want to put up 8 lights, but they only want to put up 2 lights worth of cooling.
You only got a service. Whatever your service is dictates how many watts, right? And you got to spread all those watts over lights and compressors and fans, right?
Yeah.
So if you overestimate how many watts of light you should have for your panel capacity, you did. It's the rule of the industry, honestly. On the bell-shaped curve, most people don't have enough power for what they want to do. So that's always the thing. I don't have any more room in my panel. I don't have any more room in my panel. Well, guess what? There's other ways you can do this, but it's high efficiency and it costs more. All the big trend that you see me teaching people and you're hearing about is we're utilizing what people already bought. They got what they got. We're running what they brung, and we're making it work better and do more work. It's not about energy efficiency, but guess what? It fixes rooms that were being lost to the market because they got to have good flowers. They can't blast the shit. Okay.
So you're saying it's not about energy efficiency, and
it's about product to the market.
No, I respect that, but my point is, I mean, when Quest came aboard, everything they said was about energy efficiency, and look at how efficient these dehumidifiers are right now. In the grand scheme of things, this is where Jack, you're saying that your electric bill is going to go up, right? And Steven, you're saying that your startup costs expenses are going to go way down because of the lack of dehumidifiers. My question, and every investor's question, is going to be, where's the break-even point?
I've got a spreadsheet.
Yeah, yes, of course you do.
Yeah,
I
I
love
mean,
numbers, guys.
the break was something at like, let me see if I can bring it up here.
You guys, you got to understand, I've helped hundreds of people all over since
Yeah,
2020. I started teaching people how to do this. Deschutes Growery, the first place I did it, right, the whole place, they've never called me and said, hey, can you help us lower the electric bill? They don't. They didn't call me about humidity. They didn't call me
Yeah.
about the electric bill. I just asked John at Doghouse, one of your recreation businesses up there. He hired me to fix their facility this year. And I recently asked him, I said, so what about energy? And he checked with this guy and he's like, oh yeah, it went up 30%. And John was like, well, it was worth it to have product we can sell.
yeah. I mean, it's you're either going to pay
I work for
for
business people.
you're going to pay for a power bill slowly over a few years, or you're going to pay for it up front with these white boxes that make your ACs run harder because they're dumping heat into your room. But
I
that's
liken it to this,
yeah,
Jack. Let me tell you, I liken it to this. I tell people, if you're Haagen-Dazs, you're the ice cream factory, and you can't get cold enough to make ice cream, you just got cold milk. And you can't sell cold milk as ice cream. And the cannabis industry is on the other end of the spectrum where the temperature and the humidity has to be precise too, just like it does to be ice cream. You guys are closer to refrigeration than you are to anything else because your product has to have its environment all the time, every time. Just like ice cream, just like dairy, just like cold food storage, right? So you guys got to stop dealing with HVAC guys and have guys that can fix an ice machine be your best friend. Drive around back to the market and give some weed to the guy with ladders on his truck and Freon bottles. Because if he can work at the supermarket, he can, you can tell him, hey, figure out how to do reheat for me. And he'll be like, fuck yeah, I do it at the supermarket.
that's an understated
It's not new.
reason why leaning on reheat as like a dehumidification solution is really big, because you can call anybody in that trade locally. You can call and get parts from a local supply house that you're probably about 15 minutes away from somebody who has one of these kilowatt heaters that you need to install in your
Yeah.
air handler. You're accessing a much more common parts market than what's typically like upcharged.
Well, and I think what he's referring to too, and something that is a forever a challenge for me because of my equipment, is that graph, right? That graph that we all know and love, and
Yeah.
how flat it is, how crazy, how much it looks like a heartbeat. And I will say, and I don't know if you're willing to share, but I have seen Jack's, and it is pretty damn flat. You know what I'm saying? And certainly more so than mine, and more so than most graphs I've ever really seen. And so while there might be a cost associated with this, is there not a cost associated with the quality of pretty much everything you do? I think it might be one of those things that takes you to that next half pound, or however much per light, or however many points per gram per watt type situation. It takes you over that edge that you just plateaued at, because you're going to have a more consistent environment. And I think that's ultimately what we're trying to do here, is just keep the environment consistent, right?
Yeah,
When
and what's that worth to you? Like,
Right.
do you want to pay for it up front,
Yeah.
or do you want to pay for it, over time? And how much? I mean, there is, there is a point, there's a pain point, and I think that's, what we're talking about here for a lot of sort of people who are setting up. They're moving out from their tent into a room, and maybe they're approaching buying like an AC solution, or like trying to figure out what they're going to do about like an increased humidity load. Maybe they're upgrading to LEDs and like dealing with that well. But there's a lot of opportunity to go this route versus taken just an off-the-shelf solution. And how many times have you run into that sort of specific problem as a grower, where it was a certain meta for a while, compost teas being sprayed on plants, that was that's spraying fecal matter on things that people are smoking, and that was generally accepted. I mean, it goes in the soil, folks, like if you're going to do it at all. But that was a couple of years of popularity before people were like, wait, what the fuck? And then they sort of realized that there's probably better processes to try to accomplish what you're trying to do. It's got a really
Racer,
earthy smell.
I don't know what forums you're getting your information from, but I was never spraying.
2014 was weird.
Hey, Superior Buds, something that we haven't talked about, and something that I want you to maybe discuss with Steven here is, especially again coming from the smaller grower perspective, a lung room. I mean, I don't know if he's ever dealt with that, but Superior Buds uses a lung room, and I've done a similar situation where I had like this tent town or a tent city, instead of a garage, and essentially just air condition the room all around it.
If you think about it, though, I believe I do kind of have one of your hybrid reheat style systems, because I do run heat in my flower room, but it's because I'm up north. It's freezing freaking cold out here all the time. We get a couple of months of sun, but
probably not that much different from Oregon or wherever he was talking about 46-degree daily average type situation.
Yeah. I mean, we're buried in snow most of the year. And so we have heat in the flower room, and I use that heat to heat the rest of my system. So I exhaust that heat from the flower room. So the temperature on that is set higher than the exhaust. So it exhausts the heat out, heats my lung room. There's an AC unit in the lung room that runs to keep it cooler, which also provides some dehumidification then. And then the veg tent pulls from that same lung room. Yeah. And it allows me to keep very consistent temperature. My VPD's been very flat for a long time, night and day from before. Lights off, and you get that spike, and I see just a minimal spike, and then it's right back to exactly where it should be. So, I would say I've already kind of got that. I didn't realize until you were halfway through the description. I'm like, okay, that's basically what I already built.
Right. That's the beauty of it, is it's like, it's the parts that you already have in place. It's, some people have happened upon like, hey, I've just happened to have this system that does really well with the humidity.
Now, I will say, though, I do run a 70-liter dehumidifier in my lung room as well. But
do you want another?
Yeah. But that's also because outside it can be 100% humidity here. And, wintertime, it'll be 0. Summertime, it'll be 100%. I'm on the water. So we have to deal with all extremes. And, sometimes the garage door gets open and a rush of very wet, nasty air comes in. So it helps offset.
Steven, do you think Michigan is one of the most challenging climates to grow in out of all 50 states in the union?
Fortunately, because I choose to only work indoor is indoor for me. Most everybody I'm working for is panel construction now. So I realize I have this commercial focus, but it's just, I'm in this business of working for these businesses, and one of the things that draws me to Michigan is it's now stabilized. The people that are making it, right? People, I'm guessing the people have fallen off, and who's in is.
Oh, there's plenty more to go. Don't worry. It's just starting.
Yeah.
Crazy round one, but
I don't know.
We got more to go.
Fortunately, I work for successful people in Michigan. I appreciate that. I do. So
jumping back to the lung room real quick.
Yeah.
Would it make more sense to have the heat in the lung room where the AC is? Or
as far if dehumidification is involved, it's best to cool the air first and then add the heat to that cooled air. That's why it's called reheat, right? You don't want to preheat the air, because when you preheat the air, what happens is you load all these BTUs in the air that you got to take back out before you start dehumidifying. So that's That's the thing about why an air conditioner and a dehumidifier are 1-to-1. It's a total trade that you paid $1 to run the DU, and then you paid $1 to run the AC because of the DU, in addition to the $1 for the lights. And you guys think I'm using more energy. It's like,
well, that's one of the things that the lung room did for me, was kind of sharing that energy load amongst multiple systems, right? Trying to keep things in balance. And from a smaller perspective, I run home grow 12 recreational. That's all I run. You know, we looked to scale with the micro business for a while. But for Gurley and I have talked about that. Yeah. You know, RacerX shaking his head. He understands how Michigan.
Go Class B.
Yeah. So. No, that's interesting though. That makes a lot of sense.
Requests from small guys, small space people, people that get small areas, and it's really to the point where it's like, if it's a small space, it's a small problem. You're probably already dealing with it. You know, you probably got to do more of whatever you're dealing with. You know, if you need more cooling, you probably need more cooling. You know, if you can't use outside air because it's too hot all the time, you can't change the outside.
Well, why don't we even go back to, like, I don't even know if it's appropriate to bring up like how do people scale their rooms? Like, if people don't know how to do that, you know, it's something that, you know, if you're running your operation at home, you're able to do this math. It's, what is it, 3.41 BTUs per watt, right? And then you take your BTUs, you divide them by 12,000. That's your tonnage.
Yeah.
Then you can size your AC to that. Now, if you have a 5-ton unit, you can get 500 pints per day set up with a reheat system, and you can sort of compare that to see if it works against how much water that you're expecting to go into the grow and how much dehumidification you need. I bet if a 5-ton unit is serving your wattage of your lights, you're going to be somewhere in the ballpark of how much dehumidification you're going to need, unless you're growing something crazy like a multiple rack system, and then you're going to need to call Landry, and you're not doing that at home. Well, you might, you know, no judgment, but like that's
I have 14-foot ceilings. I've thought about 2 levels.
You know,
don't do it.
Honestly, I want to see those octo bubblers and like the big walls come back where like people just stuck dowies like down in the center.
Okay,
bring back the exotic growing styles, like
the old ring that went in a circle
immediately. Oh man, yeah,
that's funny.
Well, everyone is talking under canopy lights lately, so
that's interesting. We'll see what the numbers say, right? Yep.
Side lighting and under canopy, everyone's competing of which direction should their light come from.
Yep. And you know, it's with LEDs. That's a big reason why people are, you know, amongst other like pressures into the space, mold, you know, just environmental control in general. But that's a lot of people are investigating their humidity sort of attack plans, and you know, don't forget there's other things other than, you know, the logos on the hats that people wear for you to check out. Although, like, you know, sorry. There you go. Oh, shit.
All right. If we're gonna do that.
Oh, Jesus. Nah, I'm just bald. The whole fucking thing with if you're at home and you're actually chasing after, if you're chasing after like a dehu solution, you probably already have an air conditioner. It may or may not have a heat strip in it. Consider adding one. You know, call a local. Call Steven, see if he's got someone he recommends locally to come out and take a look. If you have a lung room, you're already like ahead of the game though. Like you're blessed with the square footage and the capability of doing that. I mean, that's great. In the commercial space, square footage is hard to come by, and it gets maximized immediately. And the concept of doing lung rooms, I mean, some sophisticated facilities I've seen that pop up, but you know, when you keep it simple, this game does not have to be as complicated as the salespeople sort of make it out to be, if that makes sense.
I just thought of something, and this could be an awful idea. but I'm going to say it anyway. What if we just took our mini split air compressors and put them inside? Isn't that kind of like reheating?
Yes. But what are you going to do when you don't need the heat? So now you're back.
Gotta go somewhere.
Got to find another air conditioner.
So put another one on, put heat on it, put cool on that one. That's the most energy efficient way you can do it. The least energy efficient way that you can fix it tonight is plug some heaters into the wall.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to go watch the mini split video so you can understand the math. So it's like a 2-ton head needs 5 kW or something like that. And every portable heater that plugs into the wall, every single device is limited to 1,500 watts. That's just the rule. You won't ever find a plug-in heater for a home that's over 1,500 watts. You have to
But
then
you
go
can find
to
them on sale at
hardwired.
Menards for $40. And when you have a gun to your head,
I got that good baseboard heat.
Yeah.
oh,
Hardwired 240.
Heat.
what are you complaining
heat-
about? You have a lung
heat-
room, you got baseboard heat. You're like,
The heat is the heat.
I'm on Lake
But
Michigan.
listen, I want to share something
Water.
with you guys about rack systems and the air system on those
For
that
sure.
we figured out as we went.
You deserve
And the
more credit for
reason
those
that I
ducting systems. They're
attack-
beautiful.
Thank you. The reason that I attached the air conditioner to it is because I'm an air conditioning contractor for my whole fucking life. So when I was charged with figuring this thing out, I didn't hesitate to attach the air conditioner. I had to figure out how to, right? And when I first did, we had these vortex fans that were hooked up to the racks then also, and they spun the AC blower backwards because they overpowered it. And it created this airflow thing that burned out the heaters. Well, I got to fix it, right? So what I figured out how to do was add a mixing box or another inlet basically to the powerful fan so that I reduced the suction that's being drawn on the AC air handler. And in a lot of cases today, like in dry rooms, we just build a relay setup that's an interlock so that this fan comes on before this fan for that purpose, right? The indoor fan comes on before the powerful fan that drives the racks. Because I put 3,000, on average, a 3,000 CFM vortex fan. Think about the 600, 800, 1,000 CFMers that you had. I only buy 3,000 CFMers. I put in some 4,000 recently in a dry room and 2 of them in one room. We had 8,000 CFM of air in this air system. It's really cool. There's a video on my YouTube called The Coolest Dry Room. That's that too. And the reason I do that, and the engineers that work for the rack companies that are designing all the air systems that everybody's buying don't do that, is they don't have a reference. There's no book. There's no thing they can look up and go, oh, that's how we build air systems for cannabis.
Well, and
They've never built one.
Stephen, you like many others, many other pioneers in this industry, have done just that. You've taken a problem we've had and looked for a solution, not from within the industry itself, but from another industry exists. Because guess what? There's a lot of them out there, and almost everything we're doing, we're just stealing the tech, not stealing, but we're borrowing the tech from another
You didn't
industry.
let us look before.
100%, and we weren't allowed to test them, quite frankly.
I wasn't
if we did,
looking.
we
You
were
weren't
doing them in a
upstairs.
basement
People
or
at our
something.
house half the time either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I mean, whether it's processing, whether it's growing, whether it's the HVAC tricks and hacks, it's just almost every time it seems to be coming from another industry. And so that's why when we had that conversation a couple weeks ago on the phone, I told you I used to spout 5 years ago about how in this emerging market we needed more attorneys, we needed more electricians, we needed more people that were going to do the ancillary type stuff that are going to support this industry. It's not that we need more growers necessarily. We're going to need all these other support people. And so that's why I was happy to kind of see you come along and really pushing for what you're pushing. And I don't really know where I was going with that, but let's continue this conversation.
No, I've been in construction my whole life. So I'm still in construction, but it's the construction of your industry. And I recently was at this big trade show again this last year, and there was this one green booth. Why was it green? Because it's greenwashing. but not for energy, for cannabis, right? And these engineers are trying to say that they were the cannabis engineers of the show. And do you know that they didn't know what a terpene was? They learned that day.
We
and
get
they
that.
learned that
We
it
get
is
that a lot.
very important to you guys. And the HVAC guy had to tell them that. And they were there representing at that show that, well, we're the green engineers. I've been in competition and construction my whole life, and that ain't competition at all. You know, I tell people every day, I don't have to sell anything. I provide solutions to you guys, and I go to work, you know. And so I hope to be an example to my trade that they will catch on that you guys need us to be your best friend, because
It's a big part of what we do.
you ain't gonna call the plumber, you ain't gonna call the electrician, you ain't gonna call the engineer, you ain't gonna call the city, you're gonna call your HVAC guy. And just like I said, drive around back, find the guy that works at Baskin Robbins, you know, the one that says refrigeration or mechanical, find one of those guys and turn him on some weed, you know, and make best friends with him.
Yeah, because when you're
I
taking
tried
a
to
look
say
at
it to Shoots. I tried to join them. I wanted them
Yeah.
to just take me under their umbrella and keep me forever, and I'd just be their maintenance man. And I was going to just stay at the Shoots if they would have let me do that, but they didn't want another slice of the slice. So I just HVAC guy, come and go.
I mean, it's really concerning when the contractor that you're discussing your grow with, like the name of their operation is cannabis centric, because you've only really been able to do that for the last couple of years. So what what sort of reputation is there actually? And it's concerning. You like getting a recommendation from another grow or like a friend about, like, hey, this guy nailed my AC for, our upgraded home. That's one thing. But if someone's advertising in cannabis spaces, that's suspicious as hell. You're right. We all need to look at other industries that have already laid on the barbed wire of a lot of these problems. I think it's hilarious and ironic that, Stephen is thinking about reheat and sort of, seeking this work out while sitting in a hot yoga studio, being like, these idiots. Right. Why not just right, and there's a couple of people in the comment section, like Weezen, like other people are like, yeah, we've been using that for years. Like, I don't we brought it up a couple of times. People told us that we're idiots. We should be buying the Quest. And it's like, don't forget about Lux. Don't forget about Lux. That should be a signifier to everybody.
Tell us the story if we don't know.
All right. So I mean, if you don't remember, Lux was. They made a banging 630 CMH fixture, real slimline. It was everything you wanted that fixture to be at the time, and they had a decent failure rate. They all have failure rates, but theirs was like okay. And then they're no longer with us, right? After dropping an LED fixture, I can't recall the specifics of it, but I do remember that there was a lot of hype and a lot of sales association with it, and it was very green branded. And whether I'm growing at home or whether we're here, at the Big Grow, we're finding our best solutions from people who've been in business for decades, who don't spend money on advertising, who quietly serve other industries. Who make things repairable, make things accessible, right. And that's the real draw to reheat compared to these other package solutions. But I mean,
found a lot of my products. Yeah, a lot of my products come from aquarium, the professional big reef aquarium people, because I'm hydroponics. They've dealt with water and a lot of, hash washing. We need clean water. I look to those guys. They mix their own salt water. Okay, how do you guys start with water? They're building these massive systems that need lots of water at a time. Mm-hmm. Beer brewers is another one.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff comes out of the beer brewing, when you're not getting green taxed on it.
When an extractor finds out what a sanitary fitting is,
it's not
right. Like, it's an epiphany, right?
Yeah, all those tri-clamp fittings, man. All of a sudden, you're not paying $30 for fucking clamp.
Yeah, and that was the beauty of sort of coming across this information. Why I'm really thankful for what Steven's done in the industry, despite like catching a lot of shit for it. From people who do make a lot of money selling these things. And green taxing the people they serve.
Yep.
It's
Yeah,
it's kind of nice to see that level of care and just sort of respect for the industry and not someone just sort of treating it. I don't know.
And fortunately,
with predatory
on that
nature.
wheel is all the people
Yeah.
we help too. Like we help a shitload of people. My son and I, Pierce. I mean, every day I'm sending him somebody like, contact this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Shipping, packaging. My son in Oregon does some assembly of these kits that we make, and then Pierce does a final assembly, and then I pack them up and I ship them to everybody. And we've done it on the road. I've visited so many post offices, and we knocked the post office, and we could give a shit about the post office, but I've been to so many post offices in the United States of America, thanks to cannabis now, that I'll tell you, there's no water shortage. There might be in California, but there's no water shortage in America. You go down south, we got plenty of water.
So tell us about this kit you sell, because I invited you on here to kind of educate people about reheat and why it's important and maybe a change it should make. But tell us about like what product you're promoting and what it what however deep you want to get into it, like what the install looks like, what the cost is, what's the turnaround.
When I first came into this industry, Trollmaster showed up and I didn't want to pick it up. I put it down and didn't look at it, and the electrician talked like he knew what to do. I was like, good. And then it showed up again. It showed up again. It showed up everywhere. You guys have it. So it's just very popular. So I had no choice but to learn about it a little bit, right? Well, at this time, I'm using a thermostat to do reheat. And I go, well, I better figure out how to do it with this. So I'll just do what we do with the thermostat with this. And so that's all I did, is I created a device that interfaces basic Trollmaster parts into a marriage where cooling is king and dehumidification is slave. And if cooling is calling, we don't got no heat. But when cooling is not calling, heating and cooling is on, and it's reheat. And it's that simple. And we started sending them out to jobs like GrowLink has installed. And if they just got a thermostat, you can put a thermostat and a dehumidistat on it. So it's pretty much a universal kit where you can take any standard basic AC unit. 5 ton is the most common. So Jack put them in himself. That unit, you just put it in line with the Trollmaster and it makes that air conditioner a dehumidifier. And then we don't hang that dehumidifier. We don't put dehumidifiers in rooms anymore. I do design in Mississippi and Vermont in the last year. There's no dehumidifiers in both those facilities. We're going to Jersey, designs with no dehumidifiers. In Florida, so you want to worry, well, they're not that humid as Florida. Troy down in Florida just started up his facility, and Don from Doghouse, next door neighbor, he's going down there. No dehumidifiers. Troy put one 300-pint dehumidifier in the room, and it never got wired. They dehumidify the room with 3 5-ton ACs in Florida because they got panel construction, and they got reheat dehumidification, and they didn't wire the dehumidifiers.
So I heard you mention Trollmaster there. Which modules are you hooking to? I actually use Trollmaster to run my whole grow, so I'm just interested.
Same.
Yeah.
TSHS, TS2. We can't use a TS1 because the TS1 will never do heat if you should ever need heat. Doesn't have anything to do with reheat, but it has something to do with heat. So we don't buy TS1s. We only buy TS2s. And we use an HS1. That's humidity, dehumidification. The other one's temperature, right? That's it, those two. You got $200 in devices. If you already have the controller.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You screw a hole in our box and you mount those on it. You do all the ugly wiring inside of our box. So it looks
What's the URL?
nice and
Because
clean.
you got an online store now that popped up this past year.
That's just a website. I mean, that's a website. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's there. So the website is cannabismechanical.us. Yeah, cannabismechanical.us is the website. But I'll be honest, the cannabis industry is on Instagram, you know, and that's why I'm on it. That's where I found the cannabis industry. And so scroll
It's
down, you
also on
can see the
YouTube.
kit right there. Yeah.
Instagram can be
it.
a gnarly place for cannabis, but YouTube exists as well. I know you have the reheat hack up here, but I don't know if you've had too much experience jumping into podcasts, but I've found some of my best information in the comment section in Instagram, not necessarily in the content. But most of the cool stuff that you find there points to some sort of YouTube video, like your stuff, for instance, like your YouTube channel, which I think is still Cannabis Mechanical, right?
It is. It is also cannabis mechanical. Yeah, so that's basically like showing the wiring of how you wire one of these. On the left-hand side, you hook up your AC unit. On the right-hand side, you hook up the TS1 and the TS2, and that's all you do. And your air conditioner will then do heating, cooling, or dehumidification on demand. And when will it off? When it hits the set point that you set it at.
There's a couple of videos that you have there. The one it was probably maybe a year and a half ago where you just go in and just unplug the Quests because you had just got done with a setup. That was kind of a big selling point for us, or how we explained it to. Nothing can stop a train.
When we first change a room, the first thing we do is we leave the dehumidifiers involved, but we change the room. The day that we do this to a room that has 1 or 10 units, when we change the room changes when we turn it back on. The needle moves, the room gets cooler, it gets drier if that's what we're trying to do. It definitely gets drier. Then I don't know, Jack, I lost my point.
No, it's all good.
About getting cooler and drier, and the fact that we fix it on that day, right? There's no waiting to see, like, is this going to work? Mm-hmm. Because every day it's consistently a struggle. When we fix it, it's fixed.
Yeah, I mean, if people want to see a proof of concept at home and they happen to have a home grow with a 3-ton split, for example, I mean, you'll never be able to run a mini split, heat and cool at the same time. It's not how that works. It's a heat pump. You can only go one direction. You don't have 2 line sets going to it. It's only one pair. It goes in a cycle.
And the heat doesn't drive the air. The heat changes the state of the air.
The heat in those units is a waste of time. I like the mini split heat. Like, you might as well go to Menards and pick up some 1500 watts. But I mean, if you have a 3-ton unit, what about tossing in a couple kilowatts of either oil rads, or if you want to go get a garage heater from Menards, they have them for like $200.
Any source of heat is heat. What you guys have to understand is
the AC.
You're replicating the heat of the lights. That's it. You're just adding the heat of the lights that's not there in the dark period. At this beginning level that we're talking about, right? If you just want to move a small space a little bit, that's what we're talking about, right? It's not perfect. It's hot rodding.
Right.
It's fucking hot rodding. It's taking what you got and making it work better. That's all it is,
I keep this question keeps coming up in my head, and you keep saying it, and so I just want to reiterate it and maybe pose it as a question in a different way. You keep saying heat is heat, and we want to. I think Jack maybe just said we're trying to chase that AC.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned like this 3-to-2 ratio of AC to heat.
I had an analogy for you on it. Let's say this is your air conditioner's power, right? Your air conditioner's power is this. This cools lights. This does dehumidification, always and forever. unless heat from a dehumidifier is being introduced and causing all of this power to be used on just sensible work and no latent work. Right? So all air conditioners have a condensate line. All air conditioners have a condensate line because all air conditioners are dehumidifiers, right? But we control them on temperature. What we do is say, we're going to keep controlling with temperature, but we're going to add in humidity control. We're going to turn you on if we need you to dehumidify. And Chris Osborne in Florida, he's on Instagram, Local Flow Grower. He is the one that told me that they used to do reheat in houses in Florida before energy lockdowns, that it was every day. They did this. They put an electric heater in the AC's cooling air handler and turned it on when they wanted to dehumidify. There's a balancing act to it though, right? It's not just about blasting heat. You can't do it with gas furnaces. Don't do it with your gas furnace unless you spoke. We do it, but
that's why I keep coming back to this question, because you keep saying heat is heat, and you keep referencing these 1,500 watt heaters that we get from Menards or whatever. I got several of them. I reference them as milk house heaters, but I've also installed in pole barns, 36,000 BTU propane heaters. I live in the country. I don't have natural gas. I have propane, right? Propane is what I use to create CO2 in my room. So I'm kind of doing a little bit of maybe like 6,000 BTU, no, maybe like 2,000 BTU.
You're adding water.
Right. And I'm adding CO2. That is not that's not heat is heat, right? I mean, or we're talking like infrared? Are we talking milk? Like what? There's a specific type of
with what you
heat.
talked about. You're talking about fossil fuel combustion, and you get three things. You get CO2, you get heat, and you get water vapor. Two of them you don't really need. And yeah, that one, the heat element, it's BTUs. Is it gonna get the AC to come on and run? Yeah, but remember that third part where you're adding water, but it's
and the catch I want to mention is CO2 is only useful for the most part when the lights are on. So it's not like those things are running all night long when the reheat is actually supposed to be running. So it's not actually doing much to reheat.
CO2. I think you should always have tank CO2, but remember I work at scale every day.
Right. Yeah, and they're not going to be blowing
size of a truck.
I have to drive an hour for groceries. I don't know how long I'd have to drive for CO2.
No, you got to make your CO2.
Yeah, they deliver the propane to you. That's the difference.
Mushroom bags.
Right.
Between the heated floor and the long room, I was expecting you to have a CO2 generator on site.
Well, I do have a giant propane tank.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Andy does have chickens, so he probably could make it happen.
Yeah, that's true.
Here's the thing about the water vapor. It's acid rain. The water vapor from CO2 generators is acid rain. And I say that because it has the acidic value of like full vinegar, not diluted vinegar. So it's acid rain. And when you have a lot of it inside of a greenhouse or a building, it starts to rot something. Whatever metal that's painted in it comes in contact with quantity, which is usually the AC system, is why I'm saying it, is if you see your AC systems are rotting out, it's because of your CO2 generator.
And you brought up earlier if it was, is it heat, is heat, it would be the case if it was just providing heat, but it's also bringing water vapor. And then like the same reason why you would distill butane before a run is the same reason why you wouldn't want that same moisture in your grow room. It's because it's the left behind from, it's what's not combusted.
It's not good water. It's caustic. And you got to understand, I know too much.
But
that's a good problem to have in this type of situation, and quite frankly a big reason why we brought you on here. But I just wanted to clarify, it really isn't heat is heat. It is the source of the heat does matter, and it seems like electrical heat is probably your best bet, right?
That's the only thing that's going to be simple heat
is electric resistance heat. The next thing is if we burn fuel and we heat fluid water, right? We can do that hydronic heating. But think about, to go from one to the other, how much more apparatus there is, and the complexity to have heated hot water over a toaster in a duct, right? So we've been making electric resistant heaters since we've been making toasters. They were the first electric resistant heaters they made with toasters, right? They just got bigger. We blow air over it, we can heat whatever. It's used commercially. It's the most common form of heat for process, not for heating and cooling, but for processing, right? Where we got to do dehumidification, right? So again, that's why I didn't bring anything new. I just brought what my industry hadn't been sharing with you guys, because we weren't looking at it so much and we weren't asking.
Yeah, I worked at a massive grocery chain down south, or late 90s, and reheat was pretty big for them down there. That was, but it was in a different, I'm trying to think of where they had it at. It was because of the humidity of the veggies. It was something to do with the vegetables.
Well, because they're spraying the vegetables, right?
Yeah. And it's kind of just like us, right? You know, you don't want that excess humidity, but yet you want the vegetables to have that glisten fresh spray.
And because of the commercial building, they had a ventilation requirement that said you have to bring in X amount of air, and it might be 0 degrees outside. So if the simplest thing is to burn some electricity because you got it and it's cheap, like in Oregon, it's much less expensive. There's places in the US that electricity isn't expensive, that we do a lot of this. Places that they're out of power or electricity is expensive, I lead people to other higher efficiency measures where they are using hot water, for example. Yes, you can build a hot gas system because you already have the hot gas. Anything like that costs more to build. We're focusing on the low-hanging fruit of the fact that everybody's got all this shit and we can help them, right? It's that simple. There's so many grows that are struggling, they're built, that we're helping. So,
is there anything different about
efficiency measures coming?
Is there anything different besides, I guess, efficiency? You talked earlier about the pool systems, right? And how those are meant for massive humidity loads. Is there anything different with the efficiency of those units, or do they also just pay out the ass for it, right? I mean, because that's got to be the humidity load's crazy.
The reality is horsepower. Horsepower is everything. Horsepower is the work, right? So a desiccant filter is.
Whoop. Misclick. He'll be back.
I got to him.
They got to him. Well, no. You're going to jump in right there, but I'm going to totally divert because I'm just going to show you some delicious extract.
Yeah.
Before it starts. No, it's
nice.
not. It's Cobra milk. It's about to spill out. Okay. That's it.
Don't tip it too
amazing.
far.
But I wanted to show you what kind of toaster he was talking about. So these are the reheat coils that we're talking about. This is a 15 kilowatt unit that you would drop into a 5-ton unit. And this, when we're talking about electrical increase, it's not insignificant. You know, it's going to be, you know, this is, right, we have 2 of these in a room that has 18 kilowatts of lighting in the ceiling. So if you're talking about considering what sort of electrical loads you need to have an absolutely balanced load, everybody gets huge eyes and goes, I want to fill this place with lights, and they don't have the power to do it. I mean, very few people have 800 amps, 1,000 amps, a 480 volt or 240, single phase service. We're talking, most places 400 amp panel max if you're lucky, right? And you got maybe 60, 80, 100 to spare for something. You have to realize that if you're going to do a system where you have 2 mini splits like that, that's going to take up 40, 60 amps before you're even into lighting. So just it's worth considering that in the discussion about reheat. But at the end of the day, you are going to have to size to that to fit your quests in there and your air conditioning. And the higher efficiency systems work but at scale. Like if we're talking about 1,000 light facility, I mean, we're talking about different exotic levels of cooling, maybe a boiler system, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But when you're talking about like private operations, people who are trying, people who don't buy clones, people who start from seed, that's a great way to divide. The way that those people can get up and operational is not have a huge capex up front, and that's what you're paying for with DHU, and you don't have to do it. Yeah.
Do you have okay? So
talking about this one,
there's a lot of costs that goes into jumping into this game, even whether you're a grower, I mean, even a processor, lab, like they all kind of have a lot of costs that go
decent
into
lights, $500-600. It's hard to get it started at any scale.
Yeah, I mean, what percentage of savings do you think we're talking up front? Because some of these dehumidifiers at the commercial level are, $3, $4, $5, $6,000, not including installation. So you got to hire someone like Steven to come by, and I mean, these things weigh hundreds of pounds, and so it's not like he's doing it by himself, unless he's got a crane handy, and like it's kind of a big job. And
how big's your pile of Unistrut? Because you're going to need a shit ton of it.
Exactly.
I love Unistrut.
But
So does Racer, dude. You guys would love each other's.
Oh man,
he's got one handy. That's most people have a bed next to their bed. You're
gonna make me go get my white Unistrut.
Oh,
I'm not that bougie.
Is that the Ferroli branded one?
Oh, yeah. The painted Unistrut's a cool tech. Does it ever fuck with the nuts that you put in them after you paint them?
It doesn't, as long as you don't lay it too
pain in
thick.
the ass to install.
But they scratch just like everything. So
okay, I know it's gonna scratch, but I didn't want to, because you have that stuff over your head, and it's the worst part of it, because you rope somebody else into it, and they're dropping it.
Fit. I even got the end caps, and they fit right on the painted. No problem. So hadn't have any.
I've busted my head a couple too many times on hanging strut that didn't have end caps on them. I learned real quick that stuff sucks.
Same.
Yeah, you're tall. I worry about you walking through our grow. Like, I'm always like walking behind you, like, oh shit.
This is not accessible for large people.
Ah, Jesus. Yeah.
Story of my life. So I mean, we talked about a lot of different solutions. That toaster you got, I mean, what does it take to install that? Racer, you mentioned earlier about well, actually, no, I guess it was Steven that mentioned, maybe even potentially you could install it, right? Just kind of the proverbial you to anybody out there. And then you kind of bounced your head like, maybe,
Well, most guys do. Most people install this are Jack. Yeah, for sure. But usually it's Joe. I'm just.
They both exist.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't have to do it yourself. Like this isn't a hard install. It's running a circuit. It's adding a heater to an air handler. The holes are already there. Steven has like 4 or 5 different instructionals.
DIY thing ever, right? You guys
do what?
You guys are the most do-it-yourselfers ever.
Right.
Yeah, allegedly, I might have done something based on Ferroli's previous YouTube work, and that's a crazy endeavor. But you have access to really good information on the internet if you're willing to look, and that's kind of why I champion your stuff, because it's a game changer. It's a big step ahead. We were talking about the efficiency, I think, before you got cut off. Yeah. I think we were talking about return versus like how much you're spending up front. And if you think about raise your hand if you've had a dehumidifier fail in the last 6 years.
I had to
repurpose mine before they die.
Okay, that's fair. But I mean, if you take a look online, you see without specific branding, you see complaints about 500 class dehumidifiers and a high failure rate. And those things cost, depending on which outfit you're picking them up.
Those are 7,
6, 7 if you're getting them direct, right? They're listed at 8, 9, something like that.
COVID, I'd say they're 7 now.
Yeah, I mean, metal's not inexpensive, and those things take a lot of metal to make.
I mean, you're not buying 20, are you?
Oh, well, I mean, so if we're getting into the weeds there, if you look at some of the marketing, like they'll say that you'll need, based on your number of lighting, like 20 for like if let's say you put 50 lights in a warehouse somewhere, they're going to say you need 20 dehumidifiers, one per like 2 to 4. And it's like, how do you think I'm dumb? Like, what do you like? How do you mean that it? Like, you don't have a bigger unit that can't just do it all? Like, isn't there a smarter way to go? And then you search, and then like suddenly you find something obscure like reheat, and then see that a couple of other growers out in Oregon are doing some. Oh wow, that's a very impressive like living soil stacked grow that doesn't see, like, I'm looking at a Trollmaster graph that's flat. I'm looking at a room that doesn't have dehumidifiers in it. How does that work? You know, when you look at sort of the secondary industry to growing, you know, the growing as a lifestyle sort of thing, you do see a lot of kind of with things like Lux, weird things where things are overpriced and probably unnecessary. And if you're talking about a return on an investment of choosing reheat versus going with quests, or going with like a, you know, any sort of dehumidifier, like a standalone white box, I think it's for the extra electrical cost for like our 20 light rooms. I have a spreadsheet somewhere. I wasn't able to pull it up here, but it was something like 7 or 8 cycles. Canvas Mechanical, I think I DM'd you, right? It was 7 or 8 cycles, right?
Less than 2 years.
Less than 2 years, right? Is when your electrical bill is outpacing what you would have paid for your dehus. That's assuming you didn't have any dehus fail, and that's assuming that you're running at a scale where you're probably, you know, picking up a couple if you're considering like overhauling your entire AC versus like buying standalones. But if you can make it with those units that far, then sure, you're going to be saving more in power. But realistically, if there's ever a problem with something like an AC system, if your guy isn't available, someone is, right? And someone will come out and take a look at your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of people on Instagram that are not just cannabis guys who can talk you through some stuff. And a lot of it's accessible.
Not everybody needs it. You know, maybe you just need more ventilation. Maybe you need another mini split, you know, because you just don't make it on the hottest of the hot days, you know. So small spaces have small problems, but that's not the new American market, right? You guys are craft, and the reality is we work for a lot of commercial people, and they are having major loss. If you lose a room.
Yeah.
Well, and you said it earlier too, terpene, or as we learned the other day, VOCs, preservation.
For,
you know,
volatile organic compounds.
People are saying they're testing better. I can't quote anybody. I'm just going to let time prove it. But whether it's drying with reheat or finishing flower with reheat, people are improving their weed just like any environmental thing has ever done for you guys. So when you can actually get as dry as you want to and then go as cold as you want to, and if you can get your VPD perfect with the lung room, it's because you've practiced it and you've got it dialed. It didn't happen.
It's a balance.
You know, it didn't happen the first day, right?
No, so, it is 100% a balance.
Yeah. And
so do you have Trollmaster in that lung room?
I do.
Control and parameters in there. Do you have it set up as like a separate Trollmaster? You on Trollmaster
yes,
Pro?
Trollmaster everywhere. No, not Pro.
Okay.
Just on normal Trollmaster, and then the Aqua X Plus.
So in that situation, you'd be able to tie it in if you were chasing that down. But it sounds like it's balanced as hell.
Well, yeah, and he's got the heater in the room too, so he's kind of doing it, just not all from the lung room.
Yeah. I'm doing it like you were saying with a thermostat hack, right?
Do it on demand when you need it.
So now I do have a smart thermostat in there, so I have day-night program. That's the other piece, you know, because you've got to be able to handle that first light's off. But the AC Infinity, as soon as that humidity, another key to my room is I pull air in to the top. I exhaust out the bottom.
Yep.
So, it cycles. I'm sorry. Jeez.
I thought
I just said that backwards, didn't I?
I'm like,
Yeah.
this dude is really doing reheat. Listen to this.
Yeah.
He's taking his hot air from the top and the CO2
So
and
from
just
my lung
swapping it
room,
inverse. What? the hell?
from my lung room, I pull from the lung room ceiling down through the wall and into the floor of the flower room. And then I exhaust out the ceiling. So I'm exhausting hot, wet air out.
Yeah.
Conditioning in the lung room, getting it exactly to 60 degrees, 50%. It's kind of like you go for the middle ground. It changes depending on what I'm doing.
Which end of the year is harder, winter or summer?
It's pretty dialed in for both, really. What's really challenging is when I want to wash hash, because then I flip the AC on and it brings the room down to 30 degrees, 32 degrees, and so I shut off all ventilation to all the rooms and then bring the lung room all the way down. It becomes my hash room.
Yeah.
You would think that sort of problem wouldn't exist at scale, but the horrors I've seen, oh my God, that's interesting. That would be obnoxious having to interact and like drop temperature in a specific area. Are you considering doing something like an insulated tent? Like, is Gorilla going to come out with washrooms? I feel like that's next on the wave, right?
Yeah, I have such a large area when I'm working. You need to move a lot of stuff around. I could do it in a tent, but it would be so annoying.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they got those 10 by 20s.
Yeah, but it's also the UP. So there's times where I don't need the AC. I just crack a door.
Back.
Yeah. Oh Jesus.
I can bring the
what a
temperature
steam.
water
down.
hash on Lake Superior, like while it's like 10 feet deep of ice. Like, I'll just chop some of this off, and here's my bucket.
My RO water comes out at 35 degrees year round. So
oh my God. That's what we call down here in the wintertime, down here in southern Michigan.
Yeah, north of Canada.
It's still north of Canada. That's what we call car cold water. It's that water bottle you left in your car overnight, and you come back to it in the morning, and like the second you open it, it like kind of turns to ice. But if you just drink straight from it, it's like the coldest, most delicious thing you've ever had. That's what his tap water is like. That's insane.
Yeah. Do you have to heat it? Do you heat it up for plants? Yeah.
Yes, actually, I have an aquarium heater.
That's actually his humidifier. Is he puts his reservoir right in his room and he lets it come to temp, and it just condensates so much.
I have an RODI water reservoir, so 175 gallons of RODI water, and then 65 gallons of nutrients that's cycled through all the environments, and that water's kept at 65 degrees exactly, and it runs through
lights worth of flowering plants.
12
plants.
max.
12. How many lights worth?
Oh, how many lights on my 4?
Yeah, 4 lights. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm running 1200 watts in the 12 by 12 by 7, 12 by 8.
What lights?
HLG 300s.
Nice.
I've had them since version 1, and I have not burned a single diode.
Yep.
I could say the same. Although our failure rate on those have been actually been pretty good. I love HLG. I don't mind talking good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, most of my flowering lights are still HLG. I haven't had any failures. They're certainly not as advanced as like a GML or anything like that. And I wish I certainly wish I had more GMLs. But yeah, I mean, it's to go from HPS air cooled hoods to that, it was a game changer.
Right. It's the AK-47 of LED grow lights. I mean, they weigh a lot, but they do what they're supposed to do.
Yep, I've got a single unistrut, so they're hung on a ratchet and hanger system, so I can crank them up and down. Yep, good old
got that
good old unit. And the unistrut is actually I've got the carriage, so I can move my lights back and forth.
Oh, that's nice.
Unistrut, and I can raise and lower about 8 foot of travel. So
hell, Jesus,
it's crazy.
That's awesome.
It's fun.
No. we're fixed. We didn't have the time or really care to to put ours on those movers, but that stuff looks so cool.
What size lights are you running then?
600Rs. We've been rocking them for about 3.5 years now.
Awesome.
So the ones that we just put up are going to be on their 15th, 16th cycle, and so that's I'm really happy about that. I did have to replace 2 of them right before the start of the run, but I might attribute that to operator error for some reason.
Just like moving them or spraying them.
I think I think honestly just installation. We're those twist locks are tricky, man. But that's they've been great. Yield's been generally consistently where you would expect a 600 light or 600 watt fixture to be, whether that's LED or HPS. And it's worth talking about too, because you had mentioned it a little bit earlier about we're talking about energy efficiency, so we go to LEDs, and it's well, what wattage lights were we all running before we switched to LEDs?
1140.
Right, we just packed more watts.
You cranked that. You put it. You turned it to 11.
Just boosted. I mean, as many as my breaker would take.
That's fair. Yeah, but I mean, whether it was those fixtures or some people went with 600s or what have you. How much does Diablo draw right now? Is that a 720, 730 class fixture, or is it up to 820, something like that? And if you take a look at most of the modern lights, some of them are getting larger service footprints, but it's still generally 5x5, 4x5, 5x6, maybe 4x6, right? Still in that
kind of topping out,
yeah.
Unless you're going with those just the fold out, I've got the 12 or 16.
The spider lights,
crazy,
the ladder lights.
Yeah. Eventually, will become a ladder, probably for my chickens.
Pallet lights. That's what I like calling them. But there's pallets of them everywhere. But the bar lights are pretty interesting, but those are high bay green lights, and you see them indoors or in racks, and you're like, how? Who did, But that's why that HLG is such a cool platform. The Quantums, they throw down, you get enough penetration. They don't take as much space up in the ceiling, but they are heavy.
Yeah.
So
they wail. Yeah. Yeah.
Remote driver, please, HLG.
Steven and Racer, speaking from experience for both you guys, and we've got about 10 minutes left, and we'll start with you, Steven. What is a problem that you're seeing currently in the industry that you think needs a solution that currently doesn't have a sufficient one? And you don't have to give me what you think that solution is. I really want to focus more on the problem, because again, I think someone out there will be able to apply a solution from a different industry. I just want to make people aware of what that problem might be. What do you think it is right now, Steven?
People just have to understand that they got to reallocate how they're using their energy. If you got what you got and it ain't serving you as much as you need, you got to look at how you're using what you've got. Can you take your dehumidification power you're using now and apply it a different way? Can you, when your lights shut off, use the power that was for the lights in the dark period to do dehumidification when it's the worst time, right? So people just have to learn new ways to use what they already have better. That's just energy efficiency.
I'm gonna double down on that and say someone is gonna piggyback and find a solution, hopefully, for cheaper energy. Because if it takes more energy, then we need cheaper energy, because that is a big problem right now too.
We have the heat already. The lights are giving us the heat, right? Or the dehumidification is also heat. So we have the heat. We just have to save it, put it in fluid, and then reuse that heat on demand is one.
Heat batteries is a cool concept.
That's one way, but there's so many different ways for energy efficiency. But everything away from what everybody has today costs a lot more money. It's just simply that. And most people aren't trying to spend more money.
Fair. Jack, what do you got? What do you think?
Well, the weird part about the reheat stuff is that it's a cheaper solution, but it does take a lot of money off the table in that secondary grow market, which is why you're seeing a lot of pushback to these sort of concepts. If you Google right now, what is reheat or reheat dehumidification, the first whole page of Google, first 5 results bought between Quest, Andon, and Thermistor, which is those companies, and it's a PR release about why their products stand good and why you shouldn't necessarily use reheat. And I think that if you read those things closely with a critical eye, you're gonna see that it's kind of a little bit of a desperate hit job that they're running for against some guy who's just like, no, this is tech that we've had in natatoriums and hot yoga classes across country for a while. It sucks when you find out that you've been overpaying for something and you find a cheaper alternative. It is more expensive on a power bill, but that's really a problem for scaled businesses that are growing in cannabis. If you're planning to partner up, just get a bunch of the caregivers together and start your op, like that's the sort of thing that you have to tackle then. At home right now, even if your tent just vents off into your basement and you're just having your AC eat that load, which I imagine a bunch of people are doing at the scale of 1 to 2 lights, it's possible to talk to whoever works on your AC and say, hey, what's it take to get a heater coil installed in this unit? And then if you are deciding, because, Stephen, I was going to talk to you about this at some point, probably tomorrow. It's getting fucking late. I apologize. But
I think it is tomorrow already.
It is tomorrow. But home grow is popping off and people are upgrading. You're going to see an episode of This Old House on home grow. That's been my prediction for years. It's going to happen. And people are going to start doing sealed environment grows at home, whether it's for weed, whether it's for, peppers and anything else. The technology is getting to the point where it's so accessible that we need to make sure that these sort of methods are out there alongside the PR that's being bought. So people have a fair shot to better methods. I think it's kind of shameful what's going on, and a lot of other stuff happening in the industry that's kind of gross with XYZ influencing and trendy equipment, and the biggest thing that I wanted to convey with him on board is like he's not Steven's not necessarily like someone who's deserving of this sort of attack, right? He is coming after some serious money from a couple of industries, but not to steal it away. He's saving other growers a shit ton of money.
I labeled him as Mr. Controversial Instagram at the first 10 seconds of the show, and he's been nothing but a sweetheart and very factual and pragmatic about this whole thing. So, I mean, I know he can come off a little crass on Instagram. I get it. I've seen your stories, but it's fine. It seems like
every day I was born in LA.
Yep.
That all being said, I think you both made great points. Hey, Jack, I didn't give you an opportunity earlier. Where can we find you? What can you promote? And tell me about the stranger growing right now from Armistice Cannabis and
for sure,
where we might be able to find them.
So Armistice Cannabis on Instagram. You got to spell all that out before Instagram will show you the name. I'm sure we'll send some links in chat. But we actually just did a fresh drop over at Vibe in Inkster. For care of terms of service, we're selling bags of biscotti pie, sunset runts, Sherband runts, guava garlotto, and neon trees. The last of our batch of neon trees is there. And then coming down next, we have another batch of biscotti pie and neon trees. We're doing a small hunt in that room that probably won't make it to market, but call me, Jason. We'll be able to try some out. We want to get your opinions on things. But that's going to be dropping in a couple of different spots around Detroit, and we'll see after Monday a couple of other stores as well. But we'll check out Armistice Cannabis on Instagram. You can check me out on RacerX on Instagram as well. We post funny videos whenever we drop some stuff, and I'll tell you all about it.
They're 4 years on there.
4 years been following this guy. And yeah, if you have any questions about it, like if you, I think Chris was sort of letting it out of the bag that, I mean, DM Landry. He's got the website cannabismechanical.us where you can buy a reheat kit if you happen to be running on Trollmaster, or was it Trollmaster, GrowLink, a couple of other units.
Yeah, but I teach people on Instagram. All the learning.
What?
I teach people on Instagram.
Yeah.
My website's nothing. Come to Instagram. It's where cannabis is.
It's true.
Buy a kit. The DM access is extremely worth it. You can solve your way through a lot of these mold and humidity problems that are seeming to plague a shit ton of people.
The
in
challenge
these
with
environments.
The challenge with Instagram is you got to dig deep to find the information. It's not like the forums back in the day where a quick Google or Yahoo or whatever search would give it to you.
Instagram search is horrible.
You can go to me real easy. You search cannabis mechanical, you'll find me.
Mm-hmm.
And YouTube used to be the king because it was somewhat organized and readily accessible, and then they shut us all down. And
what
so
up,
now
YouTube? Those are the days.
I got my weed card and shit, dude. That was my favorite edit in so long. I thank you so much for doing that.
Brett, let me follow your page. I love you. Oh, man.
Well, what's up next for you, Steven? You got anything coming down the pipes? I mean, I know you spent a lot of time here in Michigan. I know you're helping people all over the United States. Are you planning on going like international with this thing? Because I know it's certainly not just a United States thing. We got a lot of climates here, but
yeah, we already do work. Like, this is what I could tell you. Ray Kroc told the McDonald's brothers, "You're local, I'm national." But we're global now. Like, we've sent kits to Thailand, to New York, to Australia, all over Canada. We've shipped stuff, right? We've shipped goods to all these places. But I've sent like knowledge. I've sent like how to a lot more than those places. I helped a guy in Peru build a room without any dehumidifiers in a place that it's never below 80% outside.
80% relative humidity, you're saying?
Yeah.
Rainforest.
Yeah. And they always have bud rot. We put one, if I could teach a guy in Peru to do it and be successful, and I have a testimonial from him that's you can find, you'll see one day, and he says we're in the most humid place in the fucking world. And we did it with very basic stuff. He never once talked about the power. He talked about the success of the crop. So
yeah,
it's about that. The people that I work with, we help them change their rooms. Just it doesn't always go real smooth. Sometimes there's problems and it's work, but you guys fucking understand that. You know what I mean? Like, that's why most of the guys that are in the industry that contact me and they're like, they just get a kit and they try it themselves. I answer a question or two and they make it because you guys are already putting shit together. You already put your Trollmaster on. You ain't going to be fucking worried about putting another piece of Trollmaster on,
Yeah. It comes down to, if you need to, like, if you're looking for energy efficiency, go outside. Like if that's no, I'm dead serious. Like,
yeah, I know, dude. It's so
if
true.
that is an ethic, if it's a core ethic of what you're doing and how you're designing to grow, there's a free energy source that pops up every day, roughly around the same time, kind of fades in and out. Use that because that is the best thing. But if you're trying to do the absolute bleeding edge private label stuff, if you're trying to develop new things or get more than 3 cycles off a year with a lot of infrastructure and you're inside like everybody else, this is the best option to get the best control over your environment. If you're trying to get the control over your environment, you're already using a controller, this thing plugs into it. Plugs into, like, it's been a godsend. I appreciate your time. This has been awesome. Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you. You're in town, right? This
No,
weekend? Nope. You're out.
the kids got sick and they decided to bail, so we stayed.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
just
give me a call when you come out.
how it worked. Like this happened on my cell phone. Thank God. I lost my iPad a while back, and that's why there was a change. But thank you guys for inviting me.
Yeah, it was great to have you guys both. We really appreciate both you guys spending the time to discuss this and kind of really dive deep into what all this means, because I think it's important for everyone. And while Superior and I buds like really have a passion for hash, you can't have good quality hash without having a good quality grow and the material that comes from it. And so, we're always looking for the hacks or the best ways to do that. Like we've been talking about being DIY guys. I love the description of this being a hot rod method, because I think that is what it is. And guess what? If you're willing to put that high octane fuel into your grow, this might be the method for you. Thank you, Stephen Landry. Landry Inside, cannabismechanical.us, cannabis.mechanical on Instagram. RacerX on Instagram, Armistice Cannabis. Find them in the Metric Michigan market. Superior Buds 420, and it's a me for Growly. Cheers, guys. Until next time.
Thank you so much.
See you then.
Have a good night, everybody. Take care.
Good night, everybody.